What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about the really big news going on about specifically Marvel, Xbox, right? I guess boiled it down, Microsoft passing on doing Marvel games. There's a long passage that talks about it, goes into kind of depth, but what it basically boils down to is that the idea of Marvel games, they were reached out, both Microsoft and Sony were reached out to develop Marvel games for their own, to be, I guess, exclusive to their own, platforms. And Microsoft turned them down. Microsoft said we rather, our strategy was to focus on their own IP. They passed. They then sat down with Sony executives in August of 2014. They pitched it to them, and the rest basically is history. And it goes more in depth in terms of how Spider-Man happened and a rival to like Batman Arkham. Basically, that was kind of the pitch, a game that could beat Batman Arkham, which is actually pretty interesting, right? And those two games are very, very closely related. And this obviously has the internet on a tailspin. So let me hit you with my controversial hot take, right? I don't care all that much. That's my controversial hot take. Of course, it doesn't immediately sound good for Microsoft, right? Like, you hear that and you say, ouch. The thing that, well, I want to address this right up front because this is something I've seen easily the most, and I want to question it, and I want to basically ask you guys what you think of it. So people are saying online, like, Sony didn't take Spider-Man away from Microsoft. Microsoft refused it. When I've seen that, I really don't even know how to address this. You know what I mean? Because I don't want to come off like I'm stupid, and maybe I already have done that. I don't want to come across tone deaf. I don't necessarily think those mean the same things, though. Like, I do. Here's what I would say. Obviously, Microsoft had the chance. They had the chance. I think the factual statement that Sony didn't take Spider-Man away from being third party, that's still false because they did. And I'm not saying that's a good or bad. In fact, let's take that part out. I don't care. Let's take that part out. If you're mad that Sony took Spider-Man or if you're happy that Sony took Spider-Man, it doesn't actually matter. The idea that Sony took Spider-Man away from third parties, is that true or not? I think it is true. It's always been true. Is it true now? I still think it is. The thing is, though, what we learn from these, I think two things can be true at the same time. I think Sony could still have taken these franchises, Wolverine, Spider-Man, I guess Miles, technically, right? You can take them and make them only exclusive. That can be true, while also saying it's true that Microsoft had the opportunity to do the same thing, and even with other Marvel franchises, and they chose not to. You can say both of those things, I believe, at the same time, and again, like, it doesn't necessarily make Sony look all that much better because they still did it. However, it does make Microsoft look worse in the sense that, and this is again, and because I'm not really here to pick on either of them. I play both of them. I truly don't care. You know, when a game comes out, if it's a game that I seriously think I'm going to enjoy, I will play it where it is. If it's only on Xbox, well, guess what? I'm playing it. If it's only on PlayStation, if it's only on PC, now that I have a good PC, I'm playing it, okay? I go where the games go because I like games, and I don't really care about the platform. PlayStation is my primary one. It's the one that I, buy third-party ones to, but that's the way it is. But I will play games literally anywhere that they happen to be. So that's kind of my stance in case people are wondering. But it does make, like, whenever you say something like, well, oh boy, don't you regret putting $1,000 into Bitcoin when it was worth $1? Like, yes, I want to punch myself in the face daily anytime I think of it, because I knew about Bitcoin and Ethereum and all those cryptocurrencies before they were even remote, and I did actually have some in a couple of them, before they were even remotely big, right? So I want to actively do horrible things to myself when I think of my lost earnings that I could have had. So and why do I bring that up? It's the same thing here. Of course, it makes Microsoft look like they're morons. You know what I mean? Because it's like they had the opportunity to. At the same time, though, let me say this. Here's another thing. It doesn't guarantee anything. So when you can bash, Microsoft can bash themselves in the face daily in saying, God damn it, like, we had the opportunity to do Spider-Man and we didn't. It's not the same, though, as my example with, like, cryptocurrency, let's say, right? Because, like, if you put in money into it, you factually would have made, X amount of money back as the price. But for Microsoft, there's more things in play. They would have to have given it to a studio, and that studio would not have been guaranteed to make the exact same game that we got. Does that make sense? So, like, we could have had, and I'm not saying Microsoft would have murdered Spider-Man, like would have done a horrible job. I'm not saying, but it's not guaranteed you get Insomniac Spider-Man. Does that make sense? So if you give Spider-Man to Microsoft and they give it to, who do you give it to, actually, is the first question. Specifically, back in 2014. Now, Microsoft obviously has like 500,000 studios now, but they didn't have 500,000 studios back 8 years ago. In fact, they had very, very few studios back then. So who do you give it to? Do you give it to Coalition? Do you give it to the Gears developers? And then what do they do? Now, it is a different kind of game. Like, what is it? So again, like, this maybe is not the kind of video you expected, the kind of words you expected me to say. It's not like a nothing burger. Like, it's definitely interesting, but I do think people are kind of reading it weirdly. You know what I mean? I don't think this doesn't absolve Sony of taking it. And again, like, that's if you even care. That's if you care. That's if you go to sleep at night crying that Spider-Man is locked behind. Now, you can be upset. I'm just saying, like, if you go to bed crying, I think you need help. But, you know what I mean? So, like, that's that argument. If you think that Sony wasn't in the clear and this, like, absolves them, I don't actually. And here's, by the way, it's not the greatest thing that Sony took Spider-Man. Maybe I should have made that clear. That's kind of my stance. Like, it is what it is. It's not great. It's the business. Microsoft has taken plenty of things before. Microsoft has taken way more than Spider-Man. Okay, so if you want to play favorites or you want to play fairly, you could say, well, Sony started it. Did they? Maybe, but at the same time, Microsoft has taken like 20 times more than just Spider-Man. So the whole thing gets you into a console war stuff, which you would also know makes me want to bash my head against a wall. So I'm not going to go into that. But again, like, that's one aspect of it. I don't think this makes Sony some sort of like guardian angel now. They still technically did it. They still took Spider-Man, made a third part, or they took it away from third party. Fine. Microsoft does look like the dummies here. They look like the morons. At the same time, in the third part, nothing was guaranteed. Even if they did do a lot of these things that Sony is doing, they don't have the same studios. You could argue talent or whatever, but just factually, you're not going to be getting the same game. So it's definitely an interesting story. It's a, like a missed opportunity, same thing with cryptocurrency or whatever, missed opportunity. It's something that you wish you could have. And Microsoft now, and honestly, it would probably be different now. In fact, it is, because we know Microsoft has some deals, or at least the rumor is they have some deals with Disney in terms of, we know confirmed Indiana Jones. There's the rumor that Microsoft is working on a Mandalorian MMO. So I think they've learned, and they're also bigger now, right? Again, the same thing. Back 8 years ago, they didn't have the same amount of studios. If you offer Microsoft right now IPs, I guarantee you they're going to take. If DC goes to them and says, hey, we have Superman, are you interested? Microsoft, I guarantee you now, is way more interested than they would have been 8 years ago. They just are. You know what I mean? Same thing for Marvel, same thing for Star Wars, anything, I think they'd be more interested. So, again, missed opportunity of 8 years ago. Definitely a cool thing to come out, but it is what it is. At the end of the day, that's just what it is. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you're subscribed, bell icon turned on, and I'll see you all on the next video.